Welcome to the bookstore competition where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Only an evildoer would pit two bookstores against each other. Bookstores bring only joy to the world. Joy in the form of books and community building. So why would anyone but a villain surreptitiously force such joy-filled places into one-on-one combat with each other? Today, I am that villain. Here's what we're doing. I want to test a theory that I've had that independent bookstores, really local independent bookstores, might have more books published by independent publishers and small presses than large chain bookstores. I think it's the word independent that has gotten into my brain and is noodling around and has made me think that there's some sort of connection or potentially some sort of connection. But I want to test it out. I want to go to my favorite bookstores, my local indie bookstore and the nearest chain bookstore, and look for books published by independent publishers and university presses and see what I can find and see if I can tell if there's any kind of a difference between the two. But I want to make it as scientific a process as possible. So I've developed a couple of controls. Control number one, I'm only going to visit the general fiction section of each of these bookstores. So I'm not going to visit the poetry section because I'd find only independent publishers there. I'm not going to visit the nonfiction section because I would have no idea what I'm looking at because I don't really read nonfiction. I'm not going to check front tables or new release tables. I'm only going to be looking at the general fiction shelves. I'm not going to genre sections, general fiction. That's where I'm looking. Control number two, I am going to time myself for 10 minutes at each bookstore, exactly 10 minutes in the general fiction section, to see if within that 10 minutes I can get a sense of how many small publishers are represented and what kind of small publishers are in those sections, see what I can find, but within 10 minutes. Control number three is not really a scientific control, it's more of a personal effort at wallet control. I'm going to limit myself to 2 books per bookstore, buying 2 books per bookstore. Can I find 2 books at each bookstore from independent publishers that appeal to me enough that I want to buy them? And I have a few general goals that I'm looking for, and this is where science and precision completely flies out the window. So basically, I just want to get a sense, because I don't think I'm going to be able to count or tally or do anything super precise. I just want to see if I can get a sense for these general fiction sections and what I can find there and what kind of independent publishers are represented at each of these bookstores. Another goal is that I want to see if I can tell which bookstore has a wider variety of independent publishers represented. So not just 1 or 2 big independent publishers represented, but a wide variety of a bunch of different independent publishers. And then along those same lines, another goal is to see if I can find a wide variety of small presses. I'm looking for beyond the really big independent publishers like Norton and Grove, and even bigger names like Graywolf and New Directions, and see what smaller presses I can find in each of these bookstores. This is also just a really good test for me. I think I've gotten pretty good at identifying a lot of logos of different independent publishers. So it'll be a good test to see if I can quickly scan bookshelves and pick out the logos and the names of the independent publishers on the spines of the books. So what are the bookstores I'm visiting, you're asking? So I'm going to visit Women and Children First, which is an independent bookstore located in the Andersonville neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. And then I'll be visiting the chain bookstore that's closest to me, that's the easiest for me to get to, which I actually have to travel to the suburbs to get to, God forbid. So it's actually the Barnes & Noble, beautiful Barnes & Noble in Skokie, Illinois. So there's my half-baked competition. There can be only one winner, and that winner is me, because I get to buy books no matter what. First up, we are headed to the burbs. Let's see how this goes. Oh. Hey. We're off to Barnes & Noble to find some books. It's summer vacation finally. Here we go. You ready, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I see is P, 2 mystery letters, then K, then space, then store. I know those mystery letters are O's. It's bookstore, not backstore.
I see, yeah. Well, we'll see. We might walk in there and it might be a back store. What would it sell? What would a back store sell?
Things that you use for behind your home.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah.
Or behind anything, behind your car.
Back store. Cool. All right, let's see if it's a back store or a bookstore. Time to see if it's a Barnes & Noble back store or a Barnes & Noble bookstore.
It's a bookstore.
It says book. Phew.
No, it says bookstore, not
Thank
book.
Thank goodness.
Not
I
boo.
really didn't want to go to a back store. So I visited Barnes & Noble the other day with my kiddo, and I feel like I did okay on my hunt. There were tons and tons of books from New York Review of Books. There were lots of New Directions, a bunch of Graywolf, and some other presses, and I feel like it was pretty good. I'll share the books that I bought at the very end of the video. One thing, I didn't even make it through the full fiction section, so that was kind of a problem, I think, for the experiment. It's such a huge section, such a huge fiction section at Barnes & Noble that I did not make it through the full section within 10 minutes. For the next bookstore visit, I will be by myself, so I won't have a little helper with a timer, and so I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little nervous about how I'm gonna time myself, film myself, look for books. At the same time, it also means that maybe I'll be a little bit more attentive to the task at hand because I won't simultaneously be parenting and I won't have a little gremlin next to me saying, did you find a book yet? Did you find a book yet? Did you find a book yet? Already the experiment is kind of out the window because the controls are not control-y enough, but we have to see it to the end. This is going to be a completely different kind of shopping experience. Let's get going. Before I talk about results, I do want to say that I am not trying to tell anybody where to shop for your books. That is not at all what I'm trying to do. I was just interested to see if I could tell if there was a difference between these two bookstores for the kind of books that I'm currently really interested in. Bottom line, go to the bookstore or the library that is easiest for you to get to. Buy the books or check out the books that you want to read, no matter the publisher. Don't listen to stupid YouTube videos like this one. Plus, this whole experiment is a massive failure. I broke all the rules I set for myself. I bought way more than 2 books at Women and Children First. One of the books that I bought at Barnes & Noble, I actually found after the 10 minutes were up. So that was a massive cheat there. And I was really distracted at Barnes & Noble because I was accompanied by my child, who I was also needed to make sure was safe. I don't think that Women and Children First necessarily had a larger number of actual books published by independent publishers, but I did get a gut feeling that they had a wider variety of books from different independent publishers. So more independent publishers were represented on the shelves, and maybe a greater ratio of indie published books on the fiction bookshelves than at Barnes & Noble. I'm not 100% sure, but because the fiction section at Barnes & Noble is just huge. They have the space to make it huge. So I didn't even get through the full section in the 10 minutes. So Women and Children First, there were, so many different publishers that I saw, like AK Press, Archipelago Books, $2 Radio, a bunch of university presses, but Barnes & Noble had a really great selection of a bunch too. Again, I just don't think it was quite as wide a variety of different publishers. Really, this experiment is less about the bookstores and more about readers and book shoppers, I think, because the bookstore is going to stock the books that are going to sell to its customers. They're going to carry the books that will sell to the people who are actually shopping at that bookstore. Women and Children First knows exactly who shops at their bookstore. They know their community so well. And it just so happens to be a community that is really obsessed with independent stores and artisans. And if you visit the Andersonville Facebook page, anytime there's a new chain restaurant coming into the neighborhood, the comments section just explodes in fury. So I think that probably feeds into the kind of books that they carry at Women and Children First. It's a lot of, it's a neighborhood that loves independent stores and restaurants and shops, and so it just would make sense that maybe more people would be into independent publishers too. Supposedly Barnes & Noble is shifting their inventory for each store to be more based on the local community that store physically sits in, and to carry books that will cater to that particular community. So what I found in the Skokie Barnes & Noble isn't necessarily what I would find in Barnes & Nobles in other states, or maybe even the Barnes & Noble in Oak Brook or Naperville. It might be completely different. Maybe that's worth checking and testing out. So if you are a reader who is interested in independent publishers and smaller presses, it might just be that you call in an order to your bookstore. I think most of them, especially post-pandemic, have online order forms. At least a lot of the bookstores I shop from do, so you can order your books in advance and go pick them up from the store. Maybe if people are ordering books from smaller publishers, the bookstores will take a hint and start stocking them on the shelves. Who knows? But even if you want to place a special order, it is sometimes hard to even know what is out there from small presses because they aren't always on bookshelves at bookstores, and they aren't necessarily marketed quite as widely across social media or all of the major venues. So if you want to know what books to order, might I gently suggest subscribing, because I regularly try to update folks on what new books are coming out from small presses, what old books are out there that are great from small presses. So this might just be the right place for you, and I'd love it if you join me. All right, crazy lady, what books did you actually buy through this villainous experiment? Oh, too many books. That's the answer. All right, so at Barnes & Noble, you might have seen the majority of books I bought were actually for my kiddo. Most of the books are about dragons. He also picked out the second book of the Percy Jackson series, so he's set for the summer. I really debated at Barnes & Noble because, it was the first bookstore I visited, and so I wanted to follow the rules I had set for myself, and so I was going to only pick 2 books. But I found a bunch that I was interested in. But ultimately, ones I picked up during the 10-minute search were a little heavy for summer reading, and I don't want to buy something just to have it sit on my shelves for a long time, because that's what always happens. I buy too many books and then they sit around for too long. So I went back after the 10 minutes are up, and I was like, you know what? I'm currently reading, actually I just finished this morning, Dr. No by Percival Everett, and that was just the right kind of wacky. So it's about a supervillain, fitting for this video. It's about a supervillain who hires a mathematician to help him with his supervillainous goals, and this mathematician is the narrator, and the mathematician's area of expertise is nothing. So he's an expert in nothing, and he studies nothing, and the villain wants to turn a Massachusetts town into nothing, and so he hires this mathematician. And I really liked it. So I said to myself, how dare you read Dr. No from Percival Everett and not have read yet very widely regarded novel, The Trees. This is published by Graywolf. So this is a blistering tale of revenge in the Deep South by the iconoclastic Percival Everett. When a pair of detectives from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation arrive in Money, Mississippi to investigate a series of brutal murders, they find at each crime scene an unexpected second body, that of a man who resembles Emmett Till. And then they start to discover eerily similar murders taking place in rapid succession all over the country. Percival Everett offers a devastating critique of white supremacy and confronts the painful legacy of lynching in the United States. So, I just said that the other books I picked up were heavy subject. Absolutely a heavy subject, but I feel like Percival Everett writes with the kind of wit and just, I don't know, his language is just so smart. I don't know. I think this will be a good one to read this summer, actually. And then I also picked up Hard Case Crime is a publisher that publishes these very pulpy. They republish classics or lost classics, and then they also publish new fiction as well. But all of them have these really pulpy, great covers. A lot of noir crime. I read 5 Decembers from Hard Case Crime last year and enjoyed it. I spotted this after the 10 minutes were up, and I was kind of like, oh, what else did I miss on this side of the alphabet over here? And spotted this one in the general fiction section, actually, not in the crime section. So this is The Hot Beat by Robert Silverberg, who is most widely known for science fiction. So it says, before his extraordinary career as a grandmaster of science fiction, Robert Silverberg honed his craft writing for the pulps. He wrote this long-lost novel, which appeared under a pen name in 1960 and has never been published since. It says, meet Bob McKay, once a rising star in the toniest nightclubs of Los Angeles, now a down-and-out denizen of tawdry bars where B-girls hustle drinks and brawls break out nightly. When one hustler winds up strangled, McKay lands on death row. Can a starlet and a sympathetic newspaper columnist clear his name before his date and with the death chamber? Whoa. The Hot Beat, it sounds summery. We'll see. I don't know. So that was Barnes & Noble. So then I got to Women and Children First, and even more of the rules flew right out the window. I bought myself 5 books. I bought 1 book for my mom, The Story of Art Without Men, which I had highlighted on a previous video. I bought that for her birthday, but then bought 5 books for myself. Yay. So I'm going to count 2 of them. I guess I could count 3 maybe. So I'm not going to count, I'm going to tell you about all of them, but I'm not going to count them in this challenge, whatever this challenge was. I don't even know what I'm doing here. This was on a table, so that breaks one of my rules of not looking at tables. But this is Direct Sunlight by Christine. It's stories from Christine Sneed, who used to be a local author, but she moved to California. So she is an amazing writer. She has a bunch of wonderful novels, and then this is her newest short story collection that is out from Triquarterly, which is the publisher from Northwestern University. And I'll read one of the blurbs here. Christine Sneed is a master storyteller, and Direct Sunlight dazzles as an example of her ability to illuminate the intricacies of relationships and longing. Read this brilliant book now. It will stay with you long after you've turned the last page. And if you want a sample of what you can find in this book, Electric Literature recently published one of these stories on their website called Wedding Party, and I'll link to it below so you can check it out. And then if you're a fan, then maybe consider picking this up. But that doesn't count because it was on a table, which kudos to Women and Children First. It should count as bonus points, and the next time I do this, I will do that. I will add bonus points for independent university publisher books out on tables. That's a good idea, right? I'm also not going to count The Lost Journals of Sacajewea by Debra Magpie Earling for this because I was going to Women and Children First looking for this book. Like, I knew they had it there. I had looked it up on their website and it said that it probably, that's a lie. Did I actually look it up? I thought they might have it. And I said, oh, I'm going to go. No, I did look it up. Did I? I did. I don't remember. So because I went in specifically looking for this, I don't think it should count. This is by Debra Magpie Earling. I read a book that she wrote last year called Perma Red that I loved. This is her most recent novel that really reclaims the story of Sacajewea. So one of the blurbs, Morgan Talty, the author of Night of the Living Res, published by Tin House last year. Lost Journals of Sacajewea is an immensely moving and transcendent work of literature. Debra Magpie Earling masterfully tells a story with prose so determined and full of light and beauty that it's impossible to look away. This is a striking, elegant, and impressive work of art that persists in the reader's mind even after the book has ended. Let's just go through these. Shutter by Ramona Emerson. I had been kind of keeping an eye out and was maybe going to pick up from the library, but then I saw it at the bookstore and I bought it. I think this was published last year and it was shortlisted for, it was longlisted for the National Book Award. This is a thriller. It features a forensic photographer working for the Albuquerque police force. Her excellent photography skills have cracked many cases. She's almost supernaturally good at capturing details. In fact, Rita has been hiding a secret. She sees the ghosts of crime victims who point her toward clues that other investigators overlook. So it also says, as a lone portal back to the living for traumatized spirits, Rita is terrorized by nagging ghosts who won't let her sleep and who sabotage her personal life. This taboo and psychologically harrowing ability ultimately drove her from the Navajo reservation, where she was raised by her grandmother. This is published by Soho Crime, which is an imprint of Soho Press, which is a larger independent publisher. Then also a book I'm not sure counts because I knew I wanted to look into buying it this summer and didn't realize that it had already been published. I think they maybe put it on the shelves a little early. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is At the Edge of the Woods, a novel by Kathryn Bromwich, and this is published by $2 Radio, which is a great publisher based in Columbus, Ohio. And this is the story of a woman who leads kind of a secluded life in the Italian Alps. I think like the local townspeople treat her like she's kind of a witchy character. They don't really trust her. She's kind of alienated, and they don't really know why she's there and lives alone. And then all of a sudden one day somebody shows up on this woman's doorstep who has been looking for her, someone from her past. On the back it says, At the Edge of the Woods is a rare novel, beautifully attuned to both the mysteries of the natural world and of human consciousness, at once cool and intense, suspenseful and surprising. Just when you think you know where Laura's story is headed, the forest path twists, uncovering a world resplendent with ghosts, secrets, and dangerously deep wells of feeling. And finally, the big gem of a find, I think, at Women and Children First, because I wasn't already on the lookout for it, is Animals in Our Days, a book of stories by Mohamed Makhzangi, translated from the Arabic by Chip Rossetti. And this is published by Syracuse University Press. The author is an Egyptian writer, and these stories were originally published in 2006. These stories are part of a long tradition of writings on animals in Arabic literature. And each story in the collection features a different animal species and its fraught relationship with humans. Water buffalo in a rural village gone mad from electric lights, grasshoppers purchased in a crowded Bangkok market, or ghostly rabbits that haunt the site of a long ago brutal military crackdown. And one of the blurbs says, in this book, Makhzangi, one of our most important contemporary short story writers, makes us realize the consequences of our actions, how we have come to burden animals with despair, madness, and rage, and how we can restore the hidden bonds between us and the animals in our days. I had a bunch of books at Women and Children First that I picked up and was thinking about buying, and I ultimately picked this up because I feel like there are a lot of books that kind of take on this theme of animal perspectives recently being published that feels like it's trendy or like a trend that's happening right now, but it's actually a very old tradition. And you know, this book was published in 2006, but these are the kinds of stories that have been told in cultures for eons. So anyway, but it sounded great, so I picked it up. So who won? Both had great indie publishers represented. I do think I'm going to try this again with different bookstores, you know, once my wallet is recovered down the road, but I will probably think of a different system for it. There are no losers, and there's one big winner, and that's me, because I have 2 great bookstores that I can visit anytime I want. Lucky me. My name is Sarah. I'll see you next time. Bye!